Dun, 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 dun. What up? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I had a lot of fun doing this yesterday, so I'm going to jump on. I have about 21 minutes. So we'll see who jumps on, and I will let you again ask me anything that you want. This is a lot of fun for me. We'll see if somebody tunes in. Do, 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 do. Who's going to join? Let's see. Living in the big blue world. Looking up and out of space. I say, hey, okay. What it is. For those that haven't seen the notice, we are doing a live training tomorrow on Zoom. You have to register to get notified of all that kind of training, etc. You would want to go to the mmfactory.pro/trainings-sign up to get all notifications. I am going to put on the ticker the registration link for the Zoom. It's just crazy long, so I don't know how you type this sucker in, but here it is anyway. Let me put it on here. We'll go to here. Edit that. We'll put space. Little chow. Save. Let's see what that does. Show. All right. We'll see. Yeah. us02web.zoom.us/register/CIKRPWBZTDALBMMTKE9ELG. Everybody got that? No? All right. So, anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'll just start kind of giving some prelude. So tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m., I'm going to go into how to run an appointment. And it's not just the appointment itself. It's how do you set up for the appointment? What process do you go through to do fact finding? What process do you go through to when and where and how do you get the scope of appointment? What's the most effective means and method to do that? What's the most effective means, method, et cetera, to get the disclaimer in front of the client? I do it multiple times. The legal mumbo jumbo, people are used to having to deal with legal mumbo jumbo. And so there's no reason not to do it. There's no reason not to make it a positive. A positive is that you follow all the rules, even the silly ones. So there's lots of silly rules that we all have to follow, especially when we're in a regulated environment like Medicare. And so it's important that you leverage that as a strength, not a weakness, rather than, oh my gosh, they're going to be, but and anyone, I'll put that out there, anyone who doesn't want to work with you because you're trying to be compliant, you don't want them as a client. That's how I learned in my career. There's been periods where I needed business. And so I would take anybody and everybody who's my client. I'll take you, whoever you are. And what I've learned is some people you don't want as a client. If you're going through the process of fact finding, et cetera, and they're already being a pain in the booty or high maintenance, man, I've learned to just politely figure out a way for them to find someone else or I can't help you. And so basically, if someone's going to be rude or a pain before they become your client, they will be exponentially worse if they are your client or if something comes along and goes awry. I've had plenty of these situations in my career, and what I will say is I've pretty much got my book of business pared down to where we have worked all of the high maintenance, mean, rude, etc. folks out of our book of business. And what that creates is an environment where every person I talk to, like the person I talked to this morning that moved from Idaho to Texas, at the end, they say, oh, Joshua, you've always made this process so simple and painless, that's part of the peace of mind experience, legacy peace of mind experience that I put together, that it is simple and easy for them, right? We go through all the complicated steps to make it simple and easy for them. And the experience that you offer is going to often determine the effectiveness of the whole thing. Is going to determine how much retention you have and how much effort you have to put into retention. And again, I treat everyone like my mom for a reason. Not only does it help me have my North Star of guiding me to do the right thing every time, but it also reminds me I need to develop and culture that relationship to where they do think of me as a second adopted son. And I'll tell them up front, I want to reverse adopt you. And that messaging and that positioning followed with the putting your money where your mouth is part and actually showing up repeatedly, answering questions, being there when they call. Like voicemails, you don't want a lot of voicemails. And one of my standards for my office is during our business hours, I don't want any calls hitting voicemail if possible. Now, obviously, sometimes that's an unrealistic expectation, but it is the goal and it is the standard we strive for. And what that does is, being readily available every single time someone's reaching out, being readily available every time someone needs you will make an effective posturing for you to have that long-standing relationship where if and when, it's not about if, typically it's usually when you make a mistake or you do something wrong or you don't answer the phone or whatever, you'll get some grace. It's so I would have to go very hard in the paint the other direction for my mom to fire me as a client. Okay. Same thing with most of my other clients. And that is because the relationship is what carries merit, not the transaction. It's not the benefits I put them on. It's not the company I put them on. It's our service. It's our standard. It's our concierge. And that's what I call ours. So we're full concierge service. And if you don't understand what that means, I would highly encourage you to adopt some level of full concierge service when it comes to the whole process, including helping them go through the process of picking out a plan. And the reality is, majority of agents out there want the public to think that our job is to pick out the plan. And frankly, brutally honestly, at this point, with the technology available, et cetera, your clients, for most of them, could pick out their plan. Maybe it's not the exact plan you would pick every single time, but it should be relatively close. And when it comes, especially something like Medicare Advantage and Supplement, because the benefits are standardized and the rules of Advantage where they have to be as good as or better than Medicare, there's only so much variance they can have from plan to plan. And really the determining factor comes down to, honestly, the star ratings, because the star ratings will often determine how much bonus and reimbursement they get on the back end to run the plan. And the minimum loss ratio applies across the board. And that's why you'll see plans that are 4.5 stars or higher outperform and be more stable than plans that are lower rated. It's because they have more money to run the plan. So even if there's high utilization, even if there's high usage, they can typically offset those things and keep the benefits stable from year to year. You'll also see which carriers are investing into benefits each year. So sometimes investment, does everybody understand what an investment is? An investment typically involves a period of either no gain or loss. And when you go into something and when you're investing into leads, investing into infrastructure, investing into systems, investing into a staff or an office, et cetera, there's going to be a period of time where you lose money. But that's just the nature of it. But the long-term gain is that once you build up the stability under the new investment for structure, leads, whatever it is, that's where the real growth happens. It's kind of like I have a 4x4 foot garden, right? And then next year I invest in building another 4x4 foot garden. Now I have twice as much garden and I can create twice as much crop. Same thing here applies when we're talking about adding staff. That front side investment to add staff can often feel very, very cumbersome and pressure driven where, oh gosh, how am I going to afford? And really that you got to flip the script on yourself. It's not how am I going to afford this investment into infrastructure, staff, whatever it is. It's how can I afford not to if I want to grow to where I want to grow. And it was a difficult transition for me mentally in the beginning of my career. I've never had a problem with generating revenue. My production has generated revenue the entire time. And so especially if you're generating revenue, it becomes extra more difficult to invest that revenue and back into the business because at some level you feel like you don't have to. And it's doubled down when you're on the other side of the coin and you have no revenue. It makes it exponentially more difficult to invest into that. And so again, tomorrow I'm going to go deep into in my opinion, the key crux of everything. Like if you're talking about money making activities, running the appointment and the experience you provide front to back from appointment being set to finishing the appointment and shaking their hand at the end or however you finish your appointment, that experience and process will determine retention rate, will determine referral rate, will determine cross-selling rate. I tried to cross-sell a client today that I've already cross-sold Hospital Indemnity to. And she was still ready to buy it for a second time because of the presentation, because of the education portion, because of the transition, and then putting them in the position to be educated and make a decision on their own. And that's what I would say. Most of your clients do not want to be sold. They don't want to be told gimmicks and pushiness and all that. What they want to be given is an opportunity to be educated on something they don't understand, to understand what are the true positives and negatives, what's the true cost. And again, selling them on the cost of not having the coverage is by far more effective than selling them on the benefits of having the coverage. It's the same thing. Why do they have a plan in the first place? Because they know the risk of having something happen without insurance is great. And if you've never been in that scenario, I personally have. My first bankruptcy was my early 20s when I had a kidney infection, was hospitalized for like 5 days, no insurance. And when I came out of there, the bill was astronomically, it was higher than my entire year's salary. And so for me, that put me in a position where I ended up crumbling and filing bankruptcy. There's no way I could find a way out of it. And that's not what people want to do. It's not what I want to do. It's not what anybody wants to do. And so knowing the numbers, it's like 70 something percent of all overnight hospital stays are caused by a critical illness, which is a wonderful stat to have when you're talking about hospital indemnity, cancer, heart attack, and stroke plans. But on top of that, look up the numbers of how of all the bankruptcies filed, how much of those are due to medical expenses, and then go deep further into that. How many of those bankruptcies were people that were insured? And so just because someone has insurance doesn't mean it protects them against bankruptcy or the worst case scenario, especially if they're under 65. Over 65, it's a little bit different. But if you're talking about even on a Medicare Advantage plan, if the max out of pocket's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and your client's living on $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 a month, I mean, you're talking about a significant portion of their annual income that they now owe. Most people don't have those kind of resources. And so that's the idea, is the Goldilocks premise, and using that during your presentation and using the education transition to adding value and providing a solution. Because a lot of times you'll educate a client on how coverage works, where the gaps and the holes are. Most agents, in my experience, unless trained properly, only focus on the positives of the plan. And so if you listen to like call center calls, they're going to sell things on the grocery cart or the over the counter or the dental vision hearing. And they don't spend a lot of time in the pocket talking about the positives and negatives of the medical benefits, where the holes are. And every single Advantage plan has the same holes. What I mean by hole is an unpredictable amount of out of pocket. So copays, that's a fixed amount. It's going to be the same every single time as long as they're in network. Every single time they get an x-ray, it's blank dollars. And that's the copay for x-ray. Same thing with most other services. But there are a handful that are universally a co-insurance, which is an algebra equation. And the complicated math, the problem with it is you're given an algebra equation with missing the most important variable. Like, what's the total cost that we're paying 20% of? And so that's the co-insurance on things like chemotherapy, radiation, typically, kidney failure where you need dialysis, durable medical equipment, including prosthetics. And so those are where you have the unpredictable costs in ways that someone could bump their head into that max out of pocket. Something like cancer as well. If you're not protecting against cancer on both Medicare Advantage and supplement, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to protect your client. In the worst case scenario, do you want them to call you and say, oh my gosh, not only am I fighting cancer, but it didn't cost me anything? Or do you want them to say, oh my gosh, I'm fighting cancer. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. Even though I have insurance, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this because I can't afford the 20%. And especially if they get cancer towards the end of the year. If they get cancer towards the end of the year, really likely that they're going to deal with a max out of pocket 2 times because treatment's probably going to dribble into the next year. And so there's massive opportunity for research, education, add value, provide solutions. And that's what we're going to cover tomorrow. If you haven't registered for the training, it's the ticker's got the link. You're going to have to type that thing fast. I wish I could make it where you could click it. I cannot. But you know how to register. I do ask that you have your camera on and participate. I know what a mean guy I am that I expect you to be on and free Zoom and you got to participate and everything. But yeah, there's such a dynamic way that very quickly and easily you can retrain yourself to do certain things during your appointments, during your presentation, during your process that builds a consistent, exquisite, concierge level experience that your clients have a reason to talk about. I want you to think about the last restaurant that you recommended. or last any business, but restaurants are often the most referred businesses because they offer a unique experience. Everybody has the same food. And if you didn't know this about restaurants, most of them are ordering their food from Sysco. And so it's the same chicken, whether you go to restaurant A, B, C, or D, but how the whole experience, presentation, the ambiance of the room, how efficient and effective the staff is. There's a lot of moving parts to the experience with the restaurant. But I want you to think back to the last restaurant that you went around and told people about without being asked. And there's one thing if someone comes to your town and they reach out and they're like, hey, I'm coming to your area. What restaurants are good in the area? That's a different referral than you having such an over-the-top experience and the food being dialed in and the service being dialed in to combine for that complete experience. That's where you'll create a fanatic or a regular, right? If you didn't know this about restaurants, like 80% of their revenue comes from regulars, not from the Joneses who go out to eat once a year to celebrate. We're talking there are some people that'll go 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7 days a week to the same place because people are such creatures of habit, so habitual. And this is such a dynamic thing that you can put together to offer an over-the-top experience. It's really eye-opening. And so I got to jump off for my next appointment. Hopefully I'll see you on tomorrow. I would love participation. Like I'm jumping on here to help you, not me. I don't need the help, y'all. I'm looking to help somebody take their game to the next level, make their appointments that they're going to have today, tomorrow, next week, exponentially more effective, especially in OEP. Like every single appointment should turn into 3, 4, 5 referrals if you do this process correctly. And on the back end, you have the right timing and message to get referrals. And so that's the sauce. I'm dropping tomorrow, 3 p.m. Mountain. You got to register. It's on Zoom. It'll be live. No scripts, no pre-recordings, no editing. There's nothing that necessary. I could do this all day long out of this right here alone. I don't need any other help. I'm looking to help you. If you want to be on the training tomorrow, you got to register. Again, the link's down below. I've been posting all over the place. You'll see it. You'll hear about it. If you're on, you're on. If not, I'll see you next week. We're going to do another one, and I'll drop the topic for that after tomorrow's training. So thanks again for tuning in today for whatever time you did. Look forward to seeing you hopefully tomorrow on the training. And otherwise, I'll keep doing these live sessions of Ask Me Anything. And hopefully you're on then. See you then.